How to address homelessness. Michael Beckman, Director of Heading Home Benefits, serves more than 1,600 families in Minneapolis, Minnesota metro area. He wrote the following to me this week. Here in our community, we don't believe, nor do we feel it necessary to set up camps for people who cannot afford housing. We do offer 24-hour shelter and meals for all who lose their housing. Frankly, the idea of camps for people is below our standard of care. We have a very strong outreach presence and enough emergency shelter beds for almost 2,000 people. We spend around $12 million in county taxes to provide shelter. Shelter is a right in our community for most. All people are houseable, even those who use drugs and alcohol daily, who have lots of personal vulnerabilities. The Amherst Wilder Foundation spent $42.8 million in 2012 for vulnerable people of the St. Paul metro area. These two are good examples for you and all Oregonians to examine. The Lovejoy Ranch is 2.5 times larger than the Fort and Birdside Camp with its 100 to 150 residents. The new Lovejoy site could hold 300 to 375 people. I recommend you slow down your process and provide some leadership. If you move ahead, 1, strictly limit the number of people to 100, as you said. 2, regulate sleeping and loitering in the adjacent vacant and covered areas. Otherwise, 350 people could easily become much, much more. 3, enact a 2-year sunset provision. And within the 2-year window, use your budget surplus to match grants for planning and program solutions beyond homelessness. Incentivize partners to provide indoor homeless space for R2D2 and others. Be proud of shutting the camp down. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. There is much more detail in my written testimony, and I'll answer questions.
Thank you. Thanks for providing your written testimony as well.
Hello, I'm Michael Callahan. Amanda, I want to commend you, and I want to commend R2D2 for raising this issue for the public consciousness. It's about time. Okay? I've been unhoused mostly for 10 years. I was a co-creator of R2D2, and I lived there full-time for 4 months, so I have a dog in the fight, if you will. I'm presently unhoused. My concern is what I call shelterlessness. Okay, Mary, you talked about the thousands of people on the street. And as I explained to you, but I want to explain to all these people here, I took a survey last time. There were 1,453 2 years ago. I was counted in that survey for the first time, so I went around and I polled people for 2 weeks. First question, are you sleeping without shelter? If the answer was yes, were you included in the survey? Okay, I got 75 yeses, and I got 15 people that were included in the survey. The survey missed the shelterless by a factor of 5. Okay? We have approximately 7,000 people every night sleeping out in Portland. Every night sleeping out, okay? You talk about fear. These people talk about fear, okay? There was a stabbing about 2 blocks away from where I live. Okay, then I explained to you, I had my neighbor come down the street with blood all over him with a cut on him, beaten on the head. He was robbed. 4 people jumped him. Talk about fear. Okay, we want to be safe. Right to Green provides a safe place for people. Okay? Let us be safe just like you all are. Okay, and Right to Green is a good neighbor. Okay, I live there. We didn't have thefts. We didn't have all these problems. Okay, it's a good, clean community. And thank you again for considering this. I'll discuss more later.
Hello, my name is Joseph Gordon. They know me as Tequila. I've been homeless on the streets of Portland for 2 years now. I've been coming on and off, sitting in City Hall on and off every Wednesday for about a couple hours, for 2 years. And I'm just glad finally some new faces are here. You know, I just love to hear that and see that. And I want to thank the city because Me and my significant other, we're walking around the city with a $2,000 income every month. And we don't do drugs or alcohol or drinks. And because why would the city had to send someone, not send someone, they volunteered to come with us to see why couldn't we find housing. And the reason why, there was no housing for us here. But now at the end of this month, we got done paying our deposits. We had to pay 2 deposits of $840 each. And next month we're at $840, which we could afford. And now we'll have a home in November 1st. And we paid for that. Not join, not CCC or anything else. And for people to say they're concerned about, all about the health benefits of bird feces and everything else, when you was walking over me, were you concerned? I've been here for 2 years. I have not heard anybody concerned about me before. What you just said, because what I see it as, I'm sorry, the 1950s and the 60s, when the president on the TV was saying, if we don't fix these problems now, it's going to be left on to the generations that come. I am that generation, and I'm pissed off. So when you want to blame other people, blame yourself because you sat there and thought of nothing but what I'm hearing all day from the people who are totally against R2D2 and everything. It's about me, 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 me. Because if it's not, I would have seen your faces at least at one protest. We have a government that's shut down. 15% of it shut down. And you sit here, want to fight against poor people or your local government. So honestly, you should be a goddamn shame to do that.
My name is Christy White. I represent Williams and Dane Employees of Viva and Pearl District Neighborhood Association. If it was my preference and I was allowed to do it, I'd concede all my time to Homer Williams after lightning speech, because I think we need to start talking about solutions. But in the meantime, I have some obligations on the record. If the city proceeds with this relocation, it will be in violation of the zoning code. That is not a difficult conclusion. It is a simple analytical exercise. I have little time, so I will give you 2 of many examples. The rest of the argument is contained in the brief before you. A homeless campsite is not a community service use. The characteristics section refers to mass shelters or short-term housing as community service use. But the DCL goes to great effort to conclude the campsite is neither of these. The DCL states, quote, multiple temporary tents on the site are not like a single open sleeping area or multiple sleeping areas separated by non-permanent partitions, characteristic of a mass shelter. This section of the DCL shows the contrived nature of the opinion. The DCL defines the tents as temporary or non-permanent. They are therefore multiple sleeping areas, separated by non-permanent partitions. But such a classification would make the tent camp a mass shelter. If it's a mass shelter, it's subject to conditional use review and other development standards that it can't satisfy. So the DCL claims it can't be a mass shelter. The city can't have it both ways. You either use the characteristic statement to conclude that it's a mass shelter, subject to conditional use review, or it's not, and it's prohibited. Another fatal flaw, the opinion states that the camp will constitute exterior alterations, but is exempt from design review because it doesn't require a building permit. The code clearly says that all changes in the type or number of uses require a building permit. The site is now a parking lot. The new use is a community service use. Going from parking to community service is a change in the type of use. It requires a building permit. This is rudimentary analysis. Building permit requires design review. If this makes sense to you, it should. This is how the city has run itself since the inception of the zoning code. When you change the use on a site, change the type of use, put in a new use, every time this happens, the city has required a building permit. To hear PDF say that the building permit is not defined, so these changes don't require a building permit, is going to be interesting news to most of my clients. You might think these are legal issues for the city attorney's office, but they're not just legal issues. They are issues that threaten the legitimacy of regulatory authority. They threaten the social and economic stability of our downtown. We have a homeless problem. There's no question about it. None of my clients are anti-homeless. So if you want to site tents in the city of Portland to accommodate homeless populations, go through a code amendment process. Do it legitimately. Tell us when they're allowed, where they're allowed, under what zones they're allowed, and for how long they're allowed. Other cities have done that. If that's what you want to do, we'll participate and we'll help. The DCL dismantled that social contract, and it must be rejected for all these reasons. Lastly, ask yourself, have you interpreted or applied a land use regulation in this proceeding? Have you exercised even a little discretion? If you have, you're making a land use decision. There's a long line of cases that leave no question that this is a land use decision. As such, I have to do this in my brief, raise several procedural objections, including failure to notice in the way the code requires under 197763, failure to provide staff report 7 days before the hearing, and the right to request a continuance of this hearing, which I will do today. You know me, I don't want to be in this position. I usually come to you with solutions. For decades, we have worked hand in hand with the city to solve problems, not create them. The circumstances we find ourselves in leave us with no option. I thank you for your time.